listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11, Monday through Friday. Joni Alford is here with me today, and so is Mack Parnell, who, is helping shine some light on what we need to do for these Supreme Court races that are coming up in Georgia. Mack, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, Martha. Just want to let you know I've been praying for you. I know I haven't been on the air with you since your recovery, and just been praying for you. Our whole family has.
Oh, thank you.
So glad to see you doing so well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm still trying to figure out what the schedule should look like, because I look at the world differently right now than I did before. And, you know what I mean? It just is it's a difference. It's a difference in how you look at things. So I appreciate the kind thoughts and prayers. And, because I know you really do that, Mack. I've known you a long time. You don't just say it, you do it. I appreciate it. Now, on these two, Supreme Court races, tell us a little bit about what's at stake here and then what we need to look at.
Absolutely. So there's two Supreme Court races, and there's actually two contested statewide Court of Appeals races. So these are for the seats for the highest courts in Georgia, and these are being decided right now. So it's primary season, so you're seeing a lot of Republican ads. You're seeing a lot of Democrats. I'm the best Republican. I'm the best Democrat. But these are nonpartisan general elections, so whoever wins these races will sit on the bench.
Whoever wins on the primary day, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. So early voting is happening right now, and what you have are the incumbents. The incumbents are receiving challenges, well-funded challenges in these nonpartisan races. So they're technically nonpartisan, but what you're seeing is the left is pumping a tremendous amount of money into these races to try to flip them. The Democratic Party is running races, supporting their candidates. The incumbents are running on, we're going to follow the rule of law. We're going to interpret the Constitution. We're going to follow the law. And the challengers are running on basically a campaign supporting abortion. Now, whatever your opinion is on abortion, it's not the role of our courts to decide what their worldview is and then to form the law, to be an activist judge and form the law around their worldview. It's to decide each case on the merits without personal opinion. So you have Charlie Bethel and Sarah Warren. They're incumbent justices on the Supreme Court, and they're being challenged by Miracle Rankin and Jen Jordan. And then on the Court of Appeals, you have Trent Brown and Elizabeth Gobeil, the incumbent judges on the Court of Appeals, being challenged by Will Wooten and Fatima Felton. And like I said, these races are being decided now. The challengers are running on a totally pro-abortion platform. Now, the thing is, we've actually seen this playbook before. In 2024, John Barrow, former Democratic congressman, challenged an incumbent justice who was just appointed, Andrew Pinson, and he ran on the same thing. I will protect abortion on the court. Now, that's not the role of the court, but that's what he ran on. And thankfully, Georgia stood strong, and Andrew Pinson won by 10 points. But not only did he win by 10 points, he actually won in places that I was actually kind of shocked by. He won in deep blue Rockdale County. Pinson won in deep blue Clayton County. And like I said, these races are being decided right now. The integrity of our courts are on the line, impartiality versus activism, and there's a lot on the line riding in these particular races.
How important is it that they're incumbents? Because I think when you get, this is a long ballot, okay? I don't care who you are. If you're Democrat, Republican, or now if you're just pulling the nonpartisan ballot, it's not that bad. But these are long ballots, Mack. I'm very worried about people skipping races or not going all the way to the bottom. How important is it that the more conservative justices are incumbents?
That is a huge advantage to the incumbents. There has not been an incumbent statewide judge that has lost, I think, in the last 100 years, if I remember correctly, going back to the 1920s. So it's a huge advantage. But what you saw in the Public Service Commission races in 2025, The left is energized in Georgia where they say, wow, we won these public service commission races by 26 points, by 25 points, more than 20 points. And so they're coming at these races with a vengeance. They're doubling down on the same playbook that they used in 2024. And on top of that, you're seeing that they are currently, the last numbers that I've seen, there have been 25,000 more Democrats pull a Democrat ballot than Republicans. So right now, the Democrats are at a plus 25,000 in the vote totals. Now, that doesn't indicate who they voted for. They could have just voted for the incumbent. You never know.
You know, it's funny. It's funny. I think that in that case, with if they pull a Democrat or a Republican ballot instead of the nonpartisan ballot, I think that these folks, in a lot of cases, I'm not going to bank on it, but they're going to look at incumbent and they're going to vote for incumbent. I mean, that's how you explain that some of these deep blue areas. Now, I'm not saying take it for granted. We got to get our folks out to vote. But I just think that most of these folks don't think about it that much, especially when they get to the justice races.
I mean, you're cross-eyed by the time you get all the way down there. But the other thing that I will say on the Republican side is who's winning the polls in the governor's race and who's winning the polls in the U.S. Senate race, lieutenant governor's race, attorney general. You go down the line, it's actually undecided. Undecided is polling by far and away as the leader in all of these races. And so what I have heard even from a lot of people is, well, it doesn't really matter. We'll just vote for whoever the nominee is. I don't have to get out and vote. I've got graduation coming up. We've got trips. We've got summer break coming up, so I don't really need to get out and vote. No, it matters. Yes, the primaries are vitally important, whoever's going to be your nominee. But when you have races that are being decided right now, even if you don't vote for anything else, even if you are truly undecided, well, first, get educated on the other candidates, but also make this a priority and vote in these elections because they're being decided right now. Voting is happening in Hall County. Voting is happening all over North Georgia, all over the state. Get out and vote.
Absolutely. And, we're talking to Mack Parnell with Faith and Freedom, but he also worked for Barry Loudermilk for a period of time. He's also worked for AIPAC. He is one of those guys that is very involved in the conservative cause and is actually a pretty good writer, too. So I appreciate you being with us today. Anything else you want to remind people of before we let you go?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but one, pray for our nation. Pray. What's the discussion y'all were having? Pray for our nation. Pray for our leaders. My father-in-law's been. There's been several attempted assassination attempts. He was on the baseball field where Steve Scalise was shot at. He's been shot at here at home, and a number of other things. And I just appreciate his willingness to stand firm in the face of that. But also, we need to pray that our leaders will do the right thing, even if they come under attack for it. And I'm going to sound like a broken record. Get out and vote. Get out and vote. It's vitally important.
Because it's right now.
Thank you so much, Martha. Yeah.
So how are the kids doing?
Oh, we're doing great. We actually have we've got a house full. Christiana's my wife's cousin is visiting, so I think we have 7 kids under 6 running around in the backyard chasing the chickens. So life is good. We're very blessed. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, and he also married the boss's daughter, which isn't a bad thing, right?
Well, people say that was job security, but actually, due to ethics laws, that ended the congressional career, and I moved on to other things. But I got the best prize out of all of it, and Christiana's a phenomenal wife, as you well know.
As I well know, that's for sure. Mack Parnell, best to you, and we'll talk soon.
God bless you.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Cole Muzio is here with me right now. He's head of Frontline, and it's always great to talk with him. And he did a really kind of clever thing last week, and I wanted to get him on to talk about, and it's called the Primary Awards. And it's like the Oscars for boring people like us, Cole. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you? And I don't know about you, but I'm glad I don't have to walk across Tennessee.
Yeah, really. I think you talk about retail politics, I really, when I talk to young people who want to go in and run for State House or whatever, those are still those kind of places where you can go door to door. You can go and meet people, and you can change things by doing that. But it's getting harder and harder on these statewide races. You know, back in the day when Richard Russell was running for governor many, many years ago, he drove all over Georgia in his his big old Oldsmobile with, he said, a dozen clean shirts in the back seat because it was summertime. So he would have to change his shirt at every stop because there was no air conditioning and it was summertime. So, there was, I think people are yearning for that though, Cole. They're yearning for that ability to meet someone in person, look them in the eye, and see what they really say. It's harder and harder to do that though.
It is. I mean, we've got over $100 million spent in the Republican primary for governor. I mean, and it's going to be about who do you see on TV the most or in your mailbox the most, as opposed to, who did you shake hands with and, meet and really hear their platform. And the vitriol that we have in some of these races is just sad. And it diminishes the ability to really hear what somebody's vision is for the state. And yeah, I'd love to get back to a day where we had folks really meet their candidates and get to know them and really assess what they were going to actually do in office.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what made you think about doing this primary awards?
My goal has been to provide our stakeholders with as much information as possible. We've done different events where we've had these guys come up on stage, and so we've recorded those and shared that with our audience. We did a conversation on stage with all the candidates up on stage with me, and I asked them a number of questions. We shared that with our audience. But I've observed a number of all these campaigns and wanted to provide a little bit of a unique take that would give our audience insights into what makes each of these candidates tick, what strengths have they brought. And also I wanted to do it in a positive way. There may be candidates that I prefer and that I recommend to our audience, but, we often forget how hard it is to run a statewide campaign, how much work goes into it. And none of these guys have a lucrative job at the end of the road. Like it is, for the vast majority of them, some of them have different motivations, but the vast majority of them are really putting their name out there to serve. And so I wanted to do something that's kind of fun, that honored the work that they're putting in, recognized the unique traits that they bring to the table, and also use it as a tool to equip our audience and to give them a lens by which to view the different candidates in ways that they prefer. Are they looking for somebody with a particular resume? Are they looking for somebody who's built out a statewide infrastructure? Are they looking for someone who's super conservative? What are they looking for? And this would allow them to make some of those decisions themselves. So
you said for best resume, it was a tie, Burt Jones and Greg Dolezal. I thought that was, I don't disagree with that one. I think they've done a lot of hard work, especially on the Riley Gaines Act and school choice and that kind of stuff, because we just had a caller call in and say that she's had a hard time finding information about Burt Jones's accomplishments as lieutenant governor, and then also she didn't have a good first impression of him when she met him. She felt like he was scanning the room for the next person to talk to instead of talking to her. So your look at that is, I think, a good one, on all of the things that are happening. Then the best network is Blake Tillery. Again, I got to agree with you about that. Blake is, he has been working it, from the beginning, and he's from South Georgia, which used to be a plus, but now you got to work really hard.
Yeah, I mean, he's from Vidalia, and if you were to kind of draw like a spot on the map that would be most difficult to run statewide from, it would be roughly his region. But I have gone into rooms thinking there's no way this particular donor or this activist is going to have an opinion on LG, and they'll tell me, yeah, I'm already with Blake. I mean, he has been able to get in nooks and crannies of the state and identify the movers and shakers of communities and get them on board. It's been really impressive what he's been able to do.
And then the well-oiled machine is interesting because it's two candidates that have very different approaches. Mike Collins, who's been working on this really hard for a long time in the Senate race, and then Rick Jackson, who just really turned the whole world upside down when he got into the race at the beginning of February, but has really, made an impact.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, he rolled out, his convoy captains right off the bat. I mean, he had a huge network of people, and he's really not, he's defined his opponents well. Some of it's been a little bit I give them a little bit of a hard time for the social media presence sometimes, but they've been able to define their opponent successfully. He really hasn't had a misstep or stumble. Rick Jackson, I think the poll, he jumped out to a huge lead. The polls have tightened. I think the polls have tightened the more people have learned about Bert's resume and the more they're learning about backgrounds of each candidate. But, Rick, for having never run a campaign before, he has not had an operational stumble.
Yes.
They've continually put out, good content online and with good ads. And, he does these events, and you can tell they've planned them well. They've got the good crowd. It's been impressive what his campaign staff has been able to do.
Well, and it's important, I think, because that whole story of foster care to billionaire, what I've noticed the most when I've observed, because I try to go to at least one or two of every event, of everybody's events, so that I can kind of observe about how people respond. And the thing I've noticed with Rick Jackson is that there are a lot of Republican women voters that really respond to that foster care story and the fact he's broken the cycle. And these are not people you see at GOP meetings. These are just like regular Republican women that sometimes we lose. You know what I mean? We get them most of the time, 90% of the time, but there are times when they're not happy with us and because of the way we talk about things. And that's what I'm hearing now is I think both Bert and Rick got too negative there for a period of time. And I see them kind of getting back to their messaging on a positive way.
Yeah, we're conservatives, so we believe competition is a good thing.
Right.
And I think the competition's making them both better.
Yeah, so I love this idea of what you did here, and because it's different than it's not different than Frontline, but it's a little more humorous, and it makes you think about things. And I think what this tool will do is get people to look a little deeper, and that's what you want to do. I think I'm very concerned about the undecideds on the Republican side, and that maybe they're not going to get out at this point in time. And what I want to make sure is that people, even if because this is a big ballot, Cole, we got a big ballot, right? And so I don't want people to be overwhelmed by the ballot. And even if you can only vote for half of the people, even if you can only vote for the judicial races, even if you're not sure, don't not vote. Get out there and vote, because you don't want somebody else to make the decision of who's going to represent you in November.
Absolutely. And it is paramount that everybody turn out and vote for these incumbent Supreme Court justices and on down on these judicial races. That's really important. And I just want to, assuage people's concerns. If you're staying home, and right now Democrats are turning out at a higher rate than Republicans, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a lot of confusion that's keeping Republicans at home. There's a lot of these races where, frankly, and somebody may offend some of these candidates for me to say this, but there's not a wrong choice in some of these races. Like we've got a much deeper bench than the other side does. We got a lot of good people running. And so and everybody's going to have a different flavor. Like you look at the lieutenant governor's race, they largely agree on issues. They're different personalities and approaches.
Absolutely.
So there's not a wrong choice. Go with your flavor, who speaks to you in a way that's unique. But make sure you go vote for these incumbent Supreme Court justices and on down the ballot. But your voice matters because it's a general election in these judicial races.
Absolutely. Cole Muzio, thank you so much for being with us today.
Honored to be with you. God bless you.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Brian Strickland is here with me today, and he is running for Attorney General, and we saw each other yesterday at Rotary Club. I'm so glad you were there.
Yes, ma'am. Good to see you yesterday, Martha. I think that was the third time I've been in Hall County the last week and a half, so it's great to be up there again yesterday.
So what are you hearing as you campaign, and, what has changed since you first started this journey?
Yeah, and so the biggest challenge of running for Attorney General is to get folks to realize how important this role is. And so we spent the last year on the ground just making a case as to why this is one of the most important roles. What I've seen lately, and we're proud, we have over 100 elected law enforcement officials that endorsed us in the race. And so a lot of support here in Georgia, every corner of our state. But lately we've seen more investment, more buy-in at the national level. And we were proud to announce last week that CPAC endorsed me in this race. Also, Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, has endorsed me. and the National Association for Gun Rights has endorsed. What I'm seeing is that nationally, everyone sees that Georgia is truly the state where it's all going to go down this year. It's important to make sure that Republicans can keep control here in our state, and it's going to be all hands on deck in November.
You know, yesterday, and I'm not going to ask you to necessarily comment about a former colleague, but I was really shocked by this. So Jeff Duncan's running for the Democratic nomination for governor, and he's made this statement yesterday. Make no mistake about it, if a Republican wins this race in the election, Donald Trump will literally have an office at the Capitol and be our de facto governor. That's why it's important to really, I mean, really, is that the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard?
It is. And look, I served with Jeff Duncan in the House. I served under him as lieutenant governor. And nobody can believe what Jeff Duncan says. He was a whole different person back then. He was conservative, and then all of a sudden he got mad at Donald Trump, and now he disagrees with everything that we did as Republicans. And he said, a quote I heard him say at an event recently, is now as a Democrat, he feels like he can love his neighbor. And so how do you give any credibility to someone that, you know, says something completely different, campaigned as a whole different person years ago, got mad at Donald Trump, and now is the biggest liberal we got in our state? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and from my perspective, one thing about states, whether you're the attorney general, which you want to be, or governor or lieutenant governor, is that you've put your own state first. My biggest complaint, about the United States Senate is that they put their caucus before the constituents, and we do it on both sides. And I think constituents should come first, regardless of, if you go out and you ask for a job, that's what you're doing, Brian. And I'm not picking on you at all. I'm saying just in general, you're asking for this job. No one's forcing you to do this.
That's right.
You're asking for it. And if you ask for it, your constituents should come first.
I completely agree. What I say to people is I'm running to be your attorney, because as Attorney General, you're the attorney for the people of Georgia, not for big business, not for the government, not for the federal government, for the people of our state. And that's what we're running for. And, we spent the last year listening to people on the ground, hearing about their concerns every single corner of our state. And the one thing I consistently hear is we do not want to become Minnesota. We do not want to become New York. We do not want to become California. And that, you look at even fundraising in these elections, Democrats are not raising any money inside Georgia. They have nobody wanting to buy in to their crazy ideas. But after the primaries, what's going to happen? All that money is going to dump in from other states because they want to change Georgia. They want to change who we are. And we got to elect people that can win in November. And even bigger than that, you got to let people who actually want to do the jobs they're campaigning for. People that won't go and tell you one thing on the campaign trail, then get in office and do absolutely nothing, because the left, they don't stop fighting. They never stop. As Republicans, sometimes we get too comfortable. Sometimes we back down when it matters most.
Well, and I think, too, that if you listen, we heard the most compelling speaker yesterday at Gainesville Rotary Club of a woman who is, writing children's books. And the story she told about the boy that they are currently fostering that was, got basically involved, got into this country because of the cartels, and every horrible thing you can imagine happened to this little boy in the custody of the cartel, including them putting him on his hands and knees with his hand behind his back and saying they were going to execute him and in order to get him to do what they wanted him to do. And so for me, the 400,000 kids that were lost during the Biden administration, many of them coming through Georgia, because Georgia is I hate to say it, is a hotbed for this kind of stuff. And, we've got human trafficking, which is, whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking, is 21st century slavery is what it is. And we've worked hard as an attorney general's office over the last number of years on this issue. And, of course, the First Lady has stepped up on this, too. How big of a problem is it still? And what kind of work are you going to do on that?
Yeah, and so you made a great point there. First off, that human trafficking was already a big issue in Georgia. And a lot of it's our location, our airport, our interstates. But then you had 4 years an open border. You had it where people were just pouring across the border, bringing drugs. Human traffickers were coming into our country, and it was open season to do that. And where do they go? They spread out from there. And so we're still dealing with the impact of an open border. Luckily, the first thing President Trump did was close the border. It was first step number one. Obviously, immigration reform was something that they're looking at nationally now, but the first step was closing the border. And so Governor Kemp, First Lady Marty Kemp, did a great job leading on that issue, making sure we're getting ahead of the traffickers. I was honored to get to carry the first bill Marty Kemp did in the state Senate that goes after those that are profiting for human trafficking in our state, going after hotel owners that were turning a blind eye to it happening on their property, giving more tools in the toolbox for prosecutors. But directly answer your question, we have to stay ahead on that, because what you see when you have great criminal laws that are passed, great civil laws that are passed, these folks get ahead and they get more creative. And so it's going to be a full-time job to stay after human traffickers, stay ahead of them, stay after this industry. And look, my goal as Attorney General is to make sure that if it's going to happen in our country at all, it's not happening in Georgia. We're going to stop it here and then go help other states stop it as well.
Absolutely. Brian, if people want to help you, how can they do that?
They can go to my website, stricklandforgeorgia.com, stricklandforgeorgia.com. You can also check me out on Facebook, Instagram, X. If you go to Strickland for Georgia, I love to earn your vote to be our next Attorney General, to be our Republican nominee in this primary, so we can go fight the Democrats and save the soul of our state this November.
Absolutely. Brian Strickland, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Martha.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.